Hello there.
How are you?
So nice to see you. We get like maybe a whole minute by ourselves.
Oh, wow.
How are things?
Things are good. Things are
Yeah,
good.
you look
Yeah.
good.
Thank you. It's the camera.
Oh, sure, sure. Oh, people are hopping on, making sure they're getting in the room. Nice to see everybody. Bronwyn. All right. I love it. We're going to have fun today. Happy New Year to everybody. Let's see who's in the room so far. Happy New Year, Clara. Thank you. Awesome to be with everybody. Amy, Ruby, and Amber, when you are here, make yourselves known just so I can see you. I know you'll pop to the top once you talk. This is great. The numbers are jumping up. I don't know about anyone else, but I'm still getting my dates correct in terms of days. I'm like, is it Tuesday? Is it Wednesday? Oh, right. Oh, I see Devon Bandison has made it. Glad you're here, Devon.
Glad to be here.
All right. How'd the dentist appointment go? We all want to know. Now everybody knows you had a dentist appointment.
All good. All good.
Love it.
I knew I was getting on camera, so I had them shine it up a little.
Everything good. Woo, thank you. All right. All right. We have 3 more minutes, but I see people are eagerly hopping on. Let me see if Amy Ruby, I know Amy Ruby is checking. Those of you who participated in our last call, we had a Zoom challenge. So she is fierce today in her commitment to making sure everything goes flawlessly, as she's so good at managing. Amber, are you here? Let me see. I don't think Amber's on yet. So welcome everybody. We're going to give everyone 2 more minutes to get on board, and then we will launch our webinar today. I'm excited. I'm going to pose some fun questions, really one main question to Amber, Devon, and Steve Chandler and myself, and then we're going to open it up. But it's a fun question. It will create some context for today, which will be great. And it's going to be fun. All right, we got 1 more minute, and then we're going to start. And all those people who are late to the new year, oh well. Steve Chandler, I think you're here. I just want to make sure you are. Can you show us that you're here? I know you were going to get in the room early.
I am here.
Yeah, all right. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here.
Well, if you can see me, why did you have to ask if I was here?
I saw your name, but it doesn't show your last name. So I wanted to make sure it was the Steve Chandler.
Well, I do that because of some trouble I've had with creditors.
I know that. So, and I know you're like keeping a low profile. So
exactly.
I totally understand. I totally understand. All right. I know.
Steve, you're wearing a proper jacket. Holy moly.
Thank you.
It's the new year.
Well, it keeps me warm here, where we have cold weather in Michigan. So I just grabbed it on the way in.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, I think we are all here. I am going to launch us today because, as I said, Amy Ruby, our powerful and highly effective director is making sure that everybody is gaining entry, and she wanted to keep her focus there, which I appreciate. So Amy Ruby is the director of the CFJ Coaching Success School and a highly successful coach in her own right. So she's making sure everybody's getting in the room. I'm Carolyn Freyer-Jones. I'm excited to have you all here. Welcome to your 2021 webinar. And also joining today from the faculty, we have Krzys. Amber, thank you so much for being here. We have Mr. Devon Bandison, straight from a dental appointment. So he is really like bright and shiny and ready to go. And then we have you, of course, Mr. Steve Chandler. Steve, thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So I'm excited. We are going to start talking about your new year. That's all of you in the world of professional coaching. And we are going to deliver on assisting you in creating your 2021 with focus and intention. So that's our objective today. And bravo to you who are coming and who are here and who are watching the recording. I acknowledge you for making this important, because that's all part of this, right? It's about effort and attention. Like what we put attention on and effort into leads to results. And that is a big piece of creating your 2021. So welcome to today. And what I want to do, we're going to start. Steve and I had this amazing conversation yesterday, and I'm going to share a little bit about it because it really helped me decide how we were going to create context for today. So we were talking about all of you and coming together and connecting and serving you. And Steve said to me, you know, one of the things I like to do is I like to sometimes think about things like this as if it's the last time that I'm ever going to get to talk to people. It's the last time. And like, what would I want to say? What would I want to make sure that I shared with people? And I thought, well, I love that, right? That's it's such a great way to approach this kind of conversation. And I'm going to offer to everyone, it's a great way to approach every conversation you have with a prospective client, as if you're never going to see them again. And what do you want to make sure gets said with no attachment, but full intention to serve? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pose this question to Devon, Steve, and Amber, and then I will answer it. And the question really is, if you could never say anything else to anybody about how to create your year with focus and intention, this was it. This was the last recording that we were ever going to have of any of you talking about how to create a year for yourself. What would you want to say? What would you want to draw from your own experience? And let's start with you, Devon.
I feel set up. I feel like you and Steve had the answers and the questions beforehand, and then, said, let's go to Devon. Well,
I have a script.
Yeah, I see. Like you're all prepared and I get just thrown into the wolves, So first I want to just acknowledge you, Carolyn, and this group for showing up today and really starting the year off with something special. I think there's a special, group here, and I'm happy to be here. If there was one thing that I would want to say, if this is the last conversation of how to create my 2021, is that yes. The question? The one thing I would say is to have fun with it, right? I think that a lot of times that we get so caught up in goal line stuff. We get so caught up, and that's great to have goal line achievement that we want to achieve. I think that just as important as that is who we're being on that road of achievement. So for me, it's always, if I'm going to create a 2021, instead of being like goal oriented, it's more of like, what are the experiences I want to have? So I kind of focus more on the experience and who do I need to be in order to create that experience, rather than what do I need to do first. So for me, it's more of who am I choosing to be? And for me, whenever I'm creating like a new year or achievement goal line stuff for the year, it's always in line with having fun, for just playing for the joy of the game. You know what I mean? I think that like when athletes or when high performers do great and perform well, they're never uptight. You know, whenever they're in the zone, when I work with athletes and pro athletes and I say, what is the zone? They always say the same thing, right? They never say, hey, I was overanalyzing, I was overthinking, I was fearful. They never say that. I said, well, what is the zone? They say, you know, the zone is, hey, Devon, the game came easy. It was fun. The game slowed down. Now, the game literally didn't slow down, but what that tells me is they were so present to what they were doing. They were having fun and so present to what they were doing that they started to see things that it looked like the game actually slowed down. So when I'm truly in the spirit of the game, the joy, and I'm truly present, life kind of slows down. You start seeing opportunities, right? You start seeing opportunities that you may not have seen before because you're truly in the game. So that's what I would say, to, you know, make sure that the way of being is in alignment of not being so uptight, you know, have some fun.
I love that. I'm going to ask you one question before we go to Steve. So in that context, Devon, and I know you to be someone who fun is a high priority. Fun is a high priority for me. And when I'm co-creating, when you were starting and you were really in the big focus of taking your work to the next level, how did you manage that? Both the fun and like really getting on the court with growing your business?
Yeah. Because I don't see them as competing. Right now, there was parts, you know, when I first started my business, you know, I was trying to figure stuff out too. So there was a lot of testing, right? There was a lot of testing. There was a lot of stuff that fell short. And you know, I have like probably 17 programs that are just in my Dropbox that I thought were good ideas. And then I started going with them. And I said, nah, you know, that's probably not gonna, you know, I'm just not feeling that. So in the beginning, for me, what I learned early on was when I played college ball, you know, training wasn't always like considered like joyfully fun, but I fell in love with understanding that being a professional was showing up to work. You know, for me, it was like get dressed before 9 o'clock, even if my 9 o'clock call was, you know, just a phone call and they won't see me. There was something about the profession of coaching that I said, I'm going to show up and fall in love with the game of coaching. So, you know, when I was working out in preseason and shooting 1,000 shots a day, a lot of that didn't feel like the joyous fun, but I fell in love. There was a fun and a love for and joy for the game. So in the beginning, for me, it was like, there were some days that I didn't want to, right? There were some days that were like, man, this is taking a little longer than I thought. I thought I was going to make my number in the first 3 months. You know, I know Steve Chandler, I'm in ACS, and I had to realize that like, this is all part of the game, that a yes and a no are both great. There's no, and that is what I had to learn, like fall in love, like yes, no, you know, yes lives in the land of no, Steve used to tell me. So what I would do is get back on the court, play, have fun with it. So in the beginning, yeah, it went back and forth, you know, because we are told at a young age, hey, you got to get serious. You got to get serious about your job. You got to, you know, tighten up. And what I found was the more I was myself, the more I relaxed into it, the more I had joy and fun with it, the more successful and the better I was able to serve people.
I love that. Thank you. Steve Chandler, final. I'm not going to say these are your last words, right? But like this is all imaginary. This is just the last. What if this were the last conversation you could have about creating a year? I think you're on mute.
Of course, I was on mute. I'm a trained professional, and I know what I'm doing at all times. I just wanted to bring myself down a bit in the eyes of others, so they're not taking too many notes. But you know, when I played college ball, It was not quite at the level Devon played. It was pinball, actually. That was what I was playing, but I was just a total mess. And the reason was, in my college years, I was the opposite of what Devon's talking about. And even in my early years as a coach. So if I had one last thing to say about how to create 2021 with intention and focus, I would drop the how to. That would be the most important thing, because in my career as a coach and the coaches I work with, and even the people I work with and the people who might be on this call who aren't coaches, who want to have a great 2021, and they're thinking of the how to. How do I do it? The real problem is never the how to. How do I get clients? How do I do this? How do I answer this potential client? The real problem is the remember to create 2021. Because most people, when you ask them about 2021, how's your 2021 going to be? They're talking in terms of surviving 2021. They're talking in terms of getting through it, surviving it, navigating it, like these are waters coming at me. And the whole thinking process, the whole dreaming process, even the imagineering that we do when we create great things goes away, and we don't remember to create. All we're doing is surviving. All we're doing is navigating and negotiating and responding and reacting. There isn't any creating. So for me, it's not how to create a great year or how to create clients or prosperity. It's remember to create and not react. Remember to, what do I want to produce today? What do I want to bring into existence that's not here? And this is an inside out question that if I remember to live inside that question, what do I want to create, instead of how do I do this? How do I? Then the year will go well, because it will be spent in my highest self, which is my creative self, my most imaginative, most innovative. So what I would do, what I would leave people with, if this were my last time I could ever speak to anybody, it would be put a sign up or somewhere, remember to create what you want. Don't wake up and react, identify problems to solve, and have the whole world be something you're trying to cope with and respond to. That's not necessary. We don't have to use the gift of imagination that way. That's not necessary. Even if there's a situation that's problematic, someone in our lives who's very ill, some situation, my business closing, something like that, I can create my response to that. I don't have to just react to everything. And so that's the key thing for me. Remember to create my 2021. Remember to create what I want. Now, most people don't. If you videotape coaches, or me in my early years as a coach, there is not a life of focus and intention going on. It's a life of, if you would be catching me in my day with a camera, what are you doing? Oh, I'm on Facebook. What's your intention? Oh, I'm checking stuff out. So the way you're going to create what you want is to check stuff out, right? No, I was just checking. I was checking things. I was seeing what was up. Okay, so if you had a job and your manager walked by and said, what are you working on right now? I'm not working on anything, sir. I'm checking stuff out. Well, why don't you do that when you're off duty? Okay. So the whole thing is focus, intention. They are deliberately spaces we deliberately occupy when we want to create the year we want. If we'll remember to create it. That's it. I'm sorry, I talked too long, but it was my last time. So
That's right. So you get to take up more time.
Thank you.
I want to highlight something before we go to Amber, because I think if you notice, if you're really paying attention, like you take one word from what Devon said, right? And Devon's word was fun. And then Steve's word was really remember, like remember to create versus react, which to me is so important, because often in my experience with coaches is like we get 3 or 4 months into the year and they're like, I didn't do it. I wasn't that focused. And then that's it. It's a wash. And, I want to be a voice for, and we want to be a voice for, like, that's not accurate. Like, we can create anew every single day. We can create anew. And it made me think of a story. I've been thinking a lot about Michelle Bauman, who was my business partner and best friend who passed away 5 years ago. I've been thinking a lot about her just because she was in the hospital a lot, and we're seeing lots of things about hospitals lately. And when Steve said, we don't have to react, we can create, I, for some reason, flashed on her in the hospital and how she would create in the hospital, right? So she wasn't proactively showing up in a hospital to create. She ended up in hospitals at various times based on her diagnosis. But from the moment she got into the hospital, she was creating what would occur for her there, whether it was with the nursing staff or a doctor or the people who were coming to support her and see her. So, like, one of the funniest stories that Steve, I know, remembers, one of her early experiences in the hospital, she was she was post-surgery. And she was texting me and emailing Steve. Now, remember, post-surgery, lots of drugs, lots of anesthesia coming off of, major kinds of painkillers. And she's telling me, I have someone here for our next group. There's someone here I'm talking to for our next group. And her words are kind of misspelled. And I'm like, is she hallucinating? Like, what is happening at the hospital? And she's like, I'm like, are you all right? I'm all right. I have someone for our next group. It's a nurse. I'm talking to her. And then I'm emailing Steve separately, like, can you let her know to back off? Like, she's on morphine. I don't think this is a good idea. And Steve, of course, was like, hey, look, if she can enroll on morphine, let her have it. Like, who cares? We were sort of laughing about it, but she created wherever she went. Wherever she went, she created. And it didn't matter how she was feeling in her body. It didn't matter. I mean, I remember walking into her hospital room and she and the nurse were exchanging this moment and they were just looking at each other. And Michelle looked at the nurse and she mouthed something like, it's going to be okay. And the nurse left the room with tears in her eyes. And I was like, what just happened? And she said, the nurse said to me, we were talking about if I don't make it, what will occur? And I looked at the nurse and I said, it'll be okay. And I was like, wow. So let's let go of the idea that we can create anywhere in any moment. And we don't have to have the best or perfect circumstances to create, right? We can have screaming children in another room. We can have the internet out. We can have all sorts of things happening and we can still create. We don't need the optimal circumstances to create. We can create right wherever we are, no matter what. Amber, let's hear from you.
Great. I'm just so happy to be here. I'm happy to see all of you. And I'm inspired by you showing up to really be intentional about what you want to create this year. I actually have two. Can I share two, Carolyn?
Okay.
I'll be quick. So I think the first is really simplify. I think we as humans really like to overcomplicate things. And I would say we as coaches can really take that up to another level. And to me, the most profound things in life are often the most simplest. And if you can simplify the actions that you're taking, I was having a conversation with a coach this week, and she was like, it's already January 4th, and I feel like I'm behind. I'm like, wait, what do you mean? And she's like, I have all these ideas and I want to create this complimentary workshop, and then I want to lead this group, and then I want to do this thing. And I'm like, slow down, right? Because the faster we're moving, the less we see. The slower we go, the more we see. So this idea of one at a time, one action at a time. And then layering into that is that attention and intention piece, right? Because then our attention isn't split. Our attention is on this. And I'm pouring myself into this. And then I'm pouring myself into the next and into the next. So as you're creating your year, you let, like, I'm a fan of let yourself dream, like fall, like let that enthusiasm lead you, and then come back to it and go, okay, if I were to simplify this, what would that look like? So that's one. And then the other, this is uncomfortable for me, and I'm going to say it anyway. I would say lean into the discomfort, like do the thing that is most uncomfortable on your list. Start with that. I listened to this podcast over the break. David Goggins, he's like a Navy SEAL ultra marathoner, and he was being interviewed, and he was talking about how he retrained his brain to anything that it was uncomfortable, he rewired it to think that's fun. Like, I'm doing that first. And I thought, oh my God, like my life would be so different if, because I tend to be like, that's the most uncomfortable thing, I will do it last. Right? I just sort of push it off to the end, push it off to the end. And if you could start with that first to really strengthen that muscle, because what's on the other side of discomfort is confidence, is freedom, is a whole new level.
Awesome. Thank you, Amber.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share in terms of like what would my final statement be? And for me, in terms of if I could only say one thing about creating a new year with intention and focus, is it would be baby steps. It's like we can only do things by building on them, right? Like, it's like, I love when Steve talks about just connect. Like, our job today is just to connect with you, to serve you. And baby steps are everything. They really are. It's like, I love, and I think this is important, and I am going to suggest that everybody do this for your 2021. I would strongly recommend, like, what is your goal? Like, in terms of income, like, what is your goal? What do you want to make this year? And the only requirement with that number is that it be at least 50% believable, not 100%, just 50%. Said another way, it can be 50% unbelievable. So come up with your goal, because goals can be helpful, and then you can put it aside. And then it's a series of baby steps to get to that. And it's a series of, who am I going to be every day? Who am I going to be for myself? And who am I going to be for others? And if I didn't say this in my very last opportunity, I would be remiss if I didn't share what Michelle would say to people, which is, we vote with two things. We vote with our calendar, and we vote with our checkbook. Your calendar is everything. And to me, a life is created by what we do every day. A life is created, and our practice is created by what we do every day. So if you're looking at your next 2 weeks and there's nothing on the calendar, yet you have things you're going to be doing, get them on your calendar. Because as Steve Chandler says, if it's not on your calendar, it's not getting done. But the other thing I would say is that if we're going to create every day, starting with ourselves is really the building block, right? It's like, how are we starting our day? Coaches, we serve others. That's what we do all day long. So are you serving yourself as you create your new year? It's like, are you in the mix? Because there's what you want to create in your practice, but it's like, where are you in that? Are there things you need to tend to in your life as you do that? I was just talking with someone this morning, and we were talking about a situation that they're in, and how it's like they want the both people in the situation. It's with 3 people, that both other people be taking care of themselves before they show up to this conversation. And I love this quote. It's like, don't make my bed if you're not making your own. So as coaches, we need to make our own beds, right? We need to be taking care of ourselves so we can help take care of others, and then get going. Like every day we get to create with baby steps, smallest unit of action you can take. It's like, we can only build our practice one person at a time, one conversation at a time. And it starts with you. So that's what I want to say. So now we want to hear from you. So I'm going to pose a question, and then we're going to open it up. We're going to say, okay, let's help you create your new year with intention and focus. So first, I'm going to pose a question, though. If you have not answered that question yet of what do you want your income to be for 2021, take a minute and be like, what is it? With the requirement that it be 50% believable. Now, we do this in our school. So when we start the school, we ask all the coaches, what's your goal? And they pick a number. And then we test it. Is it 50% believable to them, to you first and foremost? But also we look around, right? If a coach says to me, I made 20K last year and I want to make 250 this year, my question will be, is that 50% believable? Right? I love that test. That really came out of the University of Santa Monica. It's a really important question. And if they say to me, it is, I'm like, all right, then let's look at that. How can you create that? Who do you need to be? So I really encourage you to, for the moment, come up with that number. And I just want to share, Steve put on the chat, morphine is a good drug for enrolling with into groups, not individuals. But don't overdo it, right? Like morphine is, I think what you're saying, Steve, is it's not a performance enhancing drug.
I think I should point out that I was joking.
Okay, I think we know, but I'm just checking. So like, yeah, group enrolling, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So let's open it up. Let's hear from everybody. It's like, I want to hear from people who have a question about creating your new year. And if you're willing to share what your goal is, or one or two of your goals, great. You can raise your hand. And let's start with you, Martha Jeffers. Martha.
Oh my goodness, I didn't realize I'd raised my hand.
You
but
did.
That's okay. That's okay. So I love the question, is it 50% believable? Because I started on my road in September to say either I'm in or I'm out in my coaching practice. Either, because I've been playing around with it for so long, and I finally decided I'm in. Give it a year, at least a year, and then make an evaluation at that point. So I set my goal. I was feeling very enthusiastic about 100,000. And now that you're saying 50% believable, I really have to question that, coming from really almost zero to that kind of a number. Is it really feasible to begin with, since I'm a newbie, if you will, into this practice? So the question would be, what question would you ask me to get myself to a place where I'm 50% believable?
Great question, Martha. So first of all, I acknowledge you. So let me make sure I understand. So repeat, did you share your number?
Yes.
Can you say it again?
Oh no, I didn't. 100,000.
Okay. And would you say you're starting from more or less zero?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of clients, but certainly not to an extent where I can say it's.
You know, what I would say, and then we'll put it to Steve or Devon or Amber. Here's my initial response. It's some of this is dependent on how much time, how much effort are you going to put into it, right? Like I have a couple of coaches coming into the school who are really clear. They're only wanting to create a practice based on having 3 days a week. So they have 3 days a week to put into creating their business. So their goal has to match that kind of time, right? Like, does it make sense? It's like when I was starting and Michelle was starting, we were building our business at night around our day jobs, right? So we had day jobs, we were building it at night. The moment we left our day jobs, we were full-time, you know, as much time as we could, we put into inviting people, into connecting, into conversations. Other than our children that would show up at, you know, the end of the day, we were fully in that creating time. So you need to look at your life and really go, what's really the truth about how much time I'm willing and going to put into creating my work? Because
so
it really is, it really matters.
Okay, so I have time. The question is willing. So am I willing? Yes. So that's what prompted me to say, let's get going.
Yeah, if you're willing, my point of view is like, get it on the calendar. I mean, Steve used to say to Michelle and I, what are the chunks of time during the week you're going to dedicate to enrollment, to sitting there and seeing who can I serve and really being in that question. Like, and I mean that, like chunks of time on the calendar and really sit there in that, like, what am I going to do now? I'm going to look around. I'm going to see who's around. Steve, can you talk about, remember Steve Hardison used to say to you, like, all the clients are in your email. All the clients you'd ever want are in your last 40 emails.
Yeah, he would challenge my belief that I didn't know who to talk to. Because I had this long series of negative beliefs that I would put between me and really connecting with another human being. And then I would put all these activities between me and really connecting with another human being. And one of them, and there were many, one of them was, I don't know who to talk to. I don't have anyone to talk to. And he would tell me, okay, let's see if that's true. And in one session, he said, I want you to bring me and have it printed out, the last 50 different people who emailed you, and bring their emails and just print them out. And we're going to take a look. And so we spread them out in our session and we went through them one at a time. And he said, now remember, these are people emailing you. This is not you bothering others or all these other beliefs that whenever you speak to another human being, you are bothering them. And so the first one we looked at was a little vendor of mine who was making CDs for me. I'll explain what those are for those younger, for the rest of you offline sometime, but they were making CDs and they had a problem and they were going to deliver late. And their email was, sorry, Mr. Chandler, we're going to be late with our delivery. We have problems here at our business we're trying to solve, blah, blah, blah. And so Steve said, and I said, so, there's nothing to be done with that, right? And he said, no, wait a second. So you do business coaching as well as life coaching. You've received an email from someone who said they had problems with their business. What am I missing here as far as slowing down enough to see the opportunity in this? And I said, oh my gosh. And I ended up going over, sitting in their office, working with their whiteboard on the problems they had in their business, and they ended up being a client of mine. We went through all 50, and he found ways for me to connect with the people in that list that would allow me to begin serving that person in some way or another, or at the very least, introducing that person to what I did for a living. And he said that you will find these people everywhere, but you have to take away all these things between you and other people. That's it. Your social anxiety, your egomania, your self-consciousness, your fear of how you're coming across, you making this all about you instead of the service you have to offer, is why you're not making money. That's the only reason. So take the spotlight off yourself, put it on people who've reached out to you, and reach back out to them in service and see what happens. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye. So it was a revelation for me that these people are everywhere. There's always people to talk to. I can always offer my service, and they can always say yes or no, or 90% of the time they get real interested. So that was just one example of what you're talking about today. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, it's such a great story. So Martha, is that helpful? Where'd she go?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. So what I'm zeroing in on is take the spotlight off of me, because that's part of it. Is it, am I coming across correctly? Do I know what I'm saying? Right? And so it really is not about me. It's focusing on the other, fully present to understand their needs. Is what I'm hearing.
And really being willing that if you have time, see, people who, like, when I was building my business around a day job, I had to use my time well, right? Like at night, I had to be like, I'm going to send out emails tonight. Michelle and I had to talk at off hours. But when my day opened up, when I left my day job at the University of Santa Monica, all of a sudden I had, let's say 8 hours in a day. In some ways, the challenge became greater in terms of making sure I showed up for work, right? It's like Steve said at the beginning, I could go on Facebook, but what was I doing there? Was I really looking for people to serve, or was I just scrolling? For some reason, today's a lot of hospital stories. 4 years ago, my mom broke her hip as she was traveling to Mexico, came through Los Angeles, and she broke her hip and ended up in the hospital. And all of a sudden I was at a hospital navigating my mom having hip surgery. And the surgeon came out to meet with me, and, he proceeds to tell me about the surgery. And then he says, and by the way, given your mom's age, the likelihood, like she could die within a year as a result of this. And I was like, what? And he said, yeah, they don't really know why, but when people hit a certain age and they have hip replacements suddenly, emergency, morbidity goes up. I'm not saying that's going to happen to your mom. I mean, look, she was on her way to Mexico by herself, but I need to tell you. And I got really emotional. Like all of a sudden I was like teary, and then he got really uncomfortable, and he was like, oh my gosh, I don't really do well with people crying, like women crying. And I just stopped right there. And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, I get I'm not used to this part of and I was like, you need to work on that. Like, look at the work you do. You being okay with tears seems like something really important. And by the way, I'm a coach. So after you're done helping my mom, we should talk. Now, I wasn't looking for a client. I didn't go to the hospital to care for my mom. Like, yeah, game on. Lots of clients here. It's like, but when I go out in the world and someone says something like that to me, I get curious really fast, right? Like, I'm always looking to serve. Like, all day long. And that's really what Steve is talking about. Like, Steve's like, there are people to serve everywhere in our lives. When my house was being remodeled and the guy came to install the curtains, he started talking to me and I just started asking him a lot of questions. He came in and had a conversation with me, right? They're everywhere. And that's another real way to create your new year. It's like, where are you putting limits on where people are? Like, if you just did what Steve said, looked at your last 50 emails, if that's the only thing you said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to start today. I'm going to do that. My last 50 emails. That would be an incredible way to start to have focus in creating your new year. So I want to really highlight that. People are putting their goals in the chat, which is fabulous. We are going to go next to Gareth.
Hi there.
Hi. How can we serve you?
No, I really appreciated the input this morning, like Devon's thought of having fun and Amber about simplicity. I've started off my year. There's a couple of Michael Franti songs that have been really important. One is Start Small, Think Big, which I think kind of fits into this. You know, have your big dreams and then start with those doable steps and just kind of move that forward. And then the other is kind of focusing on the little things and that kind of simplicity and basicness of and being able to just slow down and see all those opportunities.
Awesome. What are you wanting in your 2021?
I've just started out, so my goal is 30,000 for this year, coming from just kind of diving into my business starting in January and having gone through a couple of coaches. I'm working with Melissa Ford right now, who's been really instrumental in
Awesome.
getting me started up. So yeah,
that's great. Fantastic. I think it's like, to me, I mean, your goal sounds really doable, like really what Steve Chandler talks about, do the doable. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean, Steve Chandler, his idea of that ladder of consciousness, and that's the fun part that Devon talked about that really resonates with me, is getting back to who I am. I came into this year and just being super serious about stuff and bringing that fun and that enjoyment back to kind of really tap into that creativity and that innovation has been kind of the more recent sort of shift that I've been trying to make. So
that's great. I mean, look, I'm glad that what Devon and Steve said resonated for you. I mean, you know, having fun and going into this with a light touch, right? Really being willing to play, being willing to get messy. I mean, to me, you know, that was one of the greatest periods of my life, was really the beginning with Michelle and Steve and not knowing at all what I was doing. That was one of the most fun periods of my life, to not know. Like, that's another thing I would offer to everybody, is that not knowing can be an incredible place to be and to have joy with, like to be doing things you've never done before, to be connecting and serving and not knowing the outcome can be one of the most magical places to be if you can really be in the spirit of that, right? It's really being in the, I'm only in this conversation to discover who this person is in front of me. I have no idea if I can help them. And to consider the possibility, like what a joy it is to get to meet people and serve in this profession. I think that's one of the most magical things we get to do every day.
Yeah, I mean, that reminds me, just kind of a lot of my conversations over this year have been around, or last year, around surrendering to the moment and just being really present in that space and seeing what shows up, right? And then serving that and trying to be fully there in that moment. So
great. Devon, do you want to say anything, given for some reason something you said resonated for Gareth? I don't know why, maybe.
Well, that's just how we roll over here in the East Coast. We don't have to say much. We just, when we do, it just hits hard, you know. No, Gareth, I think you're right. The top of the ladder of consciousness that Steve brought in is exactly it, right? It's where we find the flow and being in the zone of the game. You know, one of the words that came up, you know, in this discussion that I was thinking about was, I think Steve alluded to it and somebody who commented about interested, right? And I think that a lot of times when we start, we fall into a false narrative of we have to prove ourselves. We have to prove how good we are as a coach. And instead of getting interested, we show up trying to be interesting. And I think that it's very important that the word curiosity has been thrown around. If you really want to serve people, get curious. Instead of showing up and saying, hey, I got to present myself as I got it going on all the time. No, people, this is a relationship business. So if you can connect with people on a real level and really get interested in their world rather than showing up trying to be Mr. Interesting, then, you'll connect. And the other thing is, I remember I went to Steve once and I had this spreadsheet and I said, I figured it out, Steve. I want to make this amount of money. I'm going to have this amount of clients at this much. And then I'm going to have 4 speaking gigs and 2 organizations. And this is what it's going to equal. I had it all figured out. And Steve, Steve in his Steve Chandler, he always says to me, Devon. And I say, yes, Steve. And he says, are you open? So every time Steve says, are you open? It's like the uppercut's coming. I'm like, yes, I'm open. He says, you can have the spreadsheet and all this. And he said, but you don't need that. And I said, I don't need that. He said, no, all you need is one. And I said, I knew I came to the right place. I knew, and I called him this name that he formerly was known as, but we don't refer to him as that. But like I said, that's why they call you that. You're going to show me how to get one client with, that gets me that amount of money. And he says, no. He says, what I mean is all you need is the next one. And what I realized was even if I had lists of who I wanted to serve, I started slowing down and doing things like putting one name on my whiteboard and just sitting and looking at that name, taking a walk, getting in their world, doing some research on Facebook and like what are they up to in the world and getting curious. So when I reach out to them, I'm reaching out to them not from a needy place. I'm reaching out because I'm truly curious and I'm already involved in their world. And to me, that's coming from service rather than looking at people as targets. So that's all I would add.
Thank you, Devon. Amber, anything you want to share?
Oh.
All right. Let's go. Martin, it looks like you have your hand up.
Hi, how are you guys doing today?
Good. He's got his Yankees hat on. We got to give him some props for that. Another person identifying as a East Coaster.
Yes, another East Coaster. So
Right.
I'm glad that Devon gave that shout out over here on the last answer. And Carolyn, what I love that you just shared was about the baby steps, because I feel like looking back at 2020, it was filled with baby steps, and sometimes I guess you expect the steps to be bigger, and then like being hard on yourself gets easier. Like, what the hell was that step about? Or like, why'd you take that baby step? Or it doesn't seem like they're really adding up at a certain point. But I guess if you look back all the way to like January of 2020, then like wow, they've really added up. So I appreciate you saying that, because I think 2020 was filled with baby steps and being hard about the baby steps. So I think changing that going forward is going to be very helpful.
I would agree. I think what you're bringing up, Martin, is really important for everybody. So I just want to highlight, like, that is a theme. I think that anyone on the faculty will raise their hand that coaches tend to be hard on themselves about the actions they're taking. And often coaches tend to be thinking in terms of big steps and big actions and big results. And I love when Steve talks about, like, what does putting in a regular day look like? Like, what does it look like to show up for work for a regular day? And I would offer to you, to everyone here, if you don't know the answer to that yet, that's an answer you want to make sure you clarify, right? What does showing up for work look like? Now, some of you already have clients, and so obviously you're serving those clients. But how are you showing up for work in the space where you don't have clients, right? What does that look like? That's the place where it gets, let's use the word fuzzier. sometimes for many coaches I know. You know, Steve likes to kid me because in the school we play a very, we play a game that's like, to me, one of my most favorite games, which is called Show Me Your Calendar, right? And, you know, I joke because we don't tell anybody when that game is going to be played. And I don't ask people in advance. I'm not like, oh, let me tell you in advance. Show me you're going to play the game and you're going to show us your calendar. I want people to be surprised because we want to see what's on there. And it's one of the highlights every time we do it, because we always have someone who has less on their calendar, and we always end up with someone who has a lot on their calendar. And it's amazing to see how people create their day and what they put in to make their day really effective, and what they don't put in too. So I would say to you, Martin, like baby steps, and for everyone. And a baby step is, do you have on your calendar enrollment time every week? Do you have that there? And then if you have it there, what does that look like? I mean, for me, it literally, I used to sit at my computer and be like, okay, I'm going to look at all my emails, just like what Steve talked about. And then I'm going to go to Facebook and I'm going to scroll. And I'm not looking for people I'm looking for people who are up to stuff. I'm looking for people who are creating in the world, because I know I can help them. So I'm there with intention. It's like I am looking on Facebook with intention. I am not, as a coach, scrolling to see who's doing better than me. I am not scrolling to compare myself to all the coaches who have better hair than me. And there are a lot. And we know there are a lot that have better hair than Steve, but he doesn't look at Facebook for that either. That's not why he's on Facebook. Yeah, exactly. He's like now, you know, doing his, and we know, let's not talk about Devon and his hair. Right? It's like, but we're not on Facebook. If I'm on Facebook without intention, it is like lost time. It is like the never land. Forget it. So I want to invite everyone to really take what Martin is talking about baby steps, and go, well, what are my baby steps today? And there can be a lot of joy in that. Martin, is there a question that one of us can help like to create your year with?
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And, you know, the amount of time that I've probably spent unintentionally on Facebook is probably like disturbing. So I don't even want to get into that. But yeah, I think it's just, you know, as you know, I'm a big on the fun as well. And so when I think that bringing some of that fun and that joy into the parts of the business that maybe aren't the funnest or the most exciting, I think would be, you know, a little helpful, like getting those enrollment conversations to the next level, because you know, there's been those rejection and those moments where it didn't go so well, and that's kind of caused it to not be as fun for me.
Let's let Devon, do you want to speak to that? You have an East Coaster with a Yankees hat on. Do you want to give him some input there?
Yeah, I it's a great question. I think something, especially as newer coaches, when we started, you know, hearing the word no, it was almost like like a personal attack, right? And I'll tell you this, Martin, there was a shift as I kept just showing up and enrolling. There was a point where, and this is when enrollment became the funnest part of the business, right? Like when someone can look in my conversation and not feel any difference, like they don't know the difference between this being an enrollment conversation or this being a client that I've had for 8, 9 years, 7 years, whatever it is, that is when, you know, and that doesn't take away the initial sticker shock of no. You know, one of the things that I always like to ask myself is, say I have an intention or a goal, or say I have an enrollment conversation. Am I making this mean anything about me? What am I making this mean about me? Right? So if they say yes, does that mean I'm a better coach? If they say no, does that mean I'm a worse coach? And that's the belief that I realized was behind that, taking no's personal. So when I challenged that and I said, hey, neither of that is true, whether they say yes or no is completely fine, right? My only job is to show up as present, listening, curious, and give them the best hour, hour and a half that I can give them. That's my only job, is to serve them in that way. So, you know, it can be a process, but it also can be an event where you could say, hey, the problem isn't the no. The problem is, how can I better relate to the no? And when I realized that no was like a not yet, when I realized a no was like just maybe right now, not right now, when I realized no, like yes lived in the land of no. No may have meant that like there's more coaching to be done here. Maybe it came up too quick. So I started looking at the no's as like the best learning experience, and started looking more for like, hey, what did I learn from this? Oh, maybe you proposed too early, right? Or maybe they asked you, but you knew it, they asked you what it meant to work with you, but you knew it was too early, but you just gave it to them. So instead of slowing them down. So what I would do is, Martin, challenge that belief, whatever the belief is behind it, right? Of like, what this no, what I'm making it mean, and challenge it. And no, it's just a thought. And then for me, it's changing that relationship to that so that I can have fun. I love hearing no's. And I love when people say, wow, how much does it cost to work with you? I looked at your website. So to me, that's like, hey, you got another 45 minutes? Because now you're in like affordability, and now we're really going to get into some possibility here. So for, you know, I'm sharing that because I was there, right? I was there exactly where you are, where it felt like personal, where it felt like, oh my God, Steve, I gotta know, and I'm never gonna make it in this field, right? And it's only a thought, man. Go back and enjoy it. Some of the best learning opportunities I got as a coach in my enrollment wasn't when it went so well, or wasn't when they said yes. It was actually when like it didn't go so well, or it didn't go, I thought it was a definite yes, and they was like, nah, I ain't got time, right? So just stay with it and challenge the thought, and change your relationship to that. That's what I had to do. I changed the relationship to the no, and I started having fun.
That's awesome. Thank you, Devon. Amber, how do you feel about the word no these days? What was your biggest learning about no early in the game?
I hated no. I definitely, I come at coaching, my profession prior was dancing and acting. And so, and that's a business that is also filled with a lot of rejection, and I hated no's there too. But I had such, I always say when I'm talking to coaches, and it doesn't matter if you're just starting out or if you're a seasoned coach, stepping into being a business owner is saying, I'm up for a course in personal development like I've never experienced before. Like that is what we're signing up for. And so I became really aware very quickly of this pattern of perfection and wanting to do it right, and thinking there was this right way, and no meant there was something wrong with me. And then of course you layer in social media, and it's like, look at this person bringing in $50,000 this month, and look at this person traveling to Italy. And so I chose to unsubscribe from some people. I chose to unfollow some people because I just wasn't in a healthy place. I would use their success against myself. I used that as a personal attack against me. And it took time. Part of it was like my outer success and my inner success were sort of like inching along together, right? So as I'd work with this, I'd get curious about what was going on inside of me, right? I'm feeling resentful, I'm feeling frustrated, and I'd hear the things I was telling myself, like, I suck at this, I'm never going to be successful at this, no one's ever going to hire me, they'd be so much better off working with Michelle Bauman, I'll never be able to charge fees like that, like all of that stuff. And it got to a point where I started to create space between there's the thought and I'm going to look at it instead of it being me. Does that make sense? And then within that space, I could start to offer compassion to myself. I could start to have a softening, and I could start to embrace that was the way, right? The way was the no, like what Devon said, that's how we learn, right? We learn to walk by falling down. That's how we learn. And it's no different in coaching. And this is also why I brought up discomfort in the beginning. It doesn't matter how far along you are in your business, there will be a point when you press upon something that is new and is uncomfortable. I was just in a conversation yesterday where I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm out of my league. I don't know what this person is talking about right now. They're in this completely different industry. I'm just gonna listen, right? That I'd hear the voices starting to just be like, nope, just listen. Just listen. The questions will come. I don't know if that answered the question, but that's what I got.
I want to share something else for everyone, and then we're going to take another question. One of my favorite phrases from Stephen McGee, who is also on the faculty at the school, is limit the downtime. Limit the downtime. And what he means when he talks about that is he doesn't just mean limit the downtime of, he's not talking about relaxing, meaning limit the downtime of relaxing. What he's talking about is limit the downtime between when you get a no and how long you let that take you out of the game for. Whether you get a no or something doesn't happen. It's like this is a business. This is part of the business. There's no, and this happens a lot more for new coaches, but I've seen seasoned coaches really take it like it's a real personal thing about them when a no comes their way. And to me, all that says is there's more opportunity to build the muscle of anti-fragile, which Steve Chandler has talked about a lot, right? Like no's are just part of our business. I don't want a no to create me being in my bed with the lights out, with the covers over my head, with Haagen-Dazs and cookie dough. And I'm like, I need at least 72 hours of alone time before I can even begin to consider doing anything. We don't want that. It's like, I'm all for get coaching and get work on getting stronger, but we're not serving anyone when we allow ourselves to collapse into that stuff. One of my favorite phrases is when, Michelle and I would inevitably have someone say no to us, and Steve would say, consider this, you've been spared. And you don't even need to know why. You've been spared, and you don't even need to know why. Now, when you're a newer coach and even a more seasoned coach, unraveling the no can be helpful. It's that's why we do game film, right? That's why Michelle and I spent all those calls with Steve, really breaking down a conversation and being what happened there? What went on? Not because Steve wanted to make a big deal of the no. It was because we wanted to learn from the no. We wanted to get better. This is to me one of the best professions. If you're not going to be a professional athlete or a professional performer, this is a profession where you can really use getting better as a game. It's one of the most fun games there is. It's I love the fact that I'm still getting better and I still have stuff to learn. Steve, would you talk a little bit about that? Because you talk about that as better than anyone I know, about the idea of not using no's against ourselves and how this is part of the business. It's not emotional.
Absolutely. I think it was Martin who brought up the word rejection. And is that right? You talked about rejection. So I had to learn early that all the dramatizing that I would do about me, so someone informs me that the time isn't right for them to pay me this amount of money and do a project with me, that they're choosing not to do it. Now that's, so we're looking at something very neutral here. It's called information, right? I received the information that this person would not be working with me right now. It's just information. It's like I get the information that someone's not coming to my dinner party, and so they're not able to come. So that's just information. Now, the real question is, and we end up, Martin, I know you're probably better at helping clients with this, your own clients, than you are at taking time helping yourself with this. Because I could show clients all day where they were dramatizing neutral events in their family life, in their professional life especially. And so rejection is a really dramatic word. And we start feeling it in junior high school. In high school, you ask someone for a date and they laugh, and now you see they're in the corner of the class and they're laughing with all their friends and pointing at me, so that's where this whole idea of rejection got in there, that it's the most painful, horrible thing in the world. But in this business, the no's and the yeses, if I'm able to neutralize and move forward more and more, and it takes practice, like Carolyn said, the no's can be great. And I can learn from a no much more than I learn from a yes. So the no's can be great. And I don't have to take anything personally. And taking things personally on any level is a habit. It's a thought habit that gets developed. And it becomes like a habit, it's automatic. I say, hey, you want to go have coffee? No. And then I feel this feeling in my heart, like rejected again, alone again, naturally. And it's a thought habit, and that's all it is. And I want to see it for, there won't be any fun. Like Carolyn said, there's a joy in this business of meeting people. There was no joy for me in meeting people and getting to know people. That was a nightmare until I stopped wanting something from them. Byron Katie says, personalities can't love, they want something. So when I'm in my ego, I'm in my personality, and I'm trying to get something from another human being, subtly, gracefully, charmingly manipulating them into spending money on me. There's no joy in that. There can't, because there's no connection to the other person. So I don't know if I answered your question. I got off on a tangent there.
That was awesome, Steve. Thank you for sharing that.
That does happen, people in my condition.
No. So helpful. Thank you. All right. Let's do this. Julie Ireland, let's see if we can help you create your 2021. Oh, you're on mute.
I was just seeing if you were paying attention.
All right.
Me and Steve Chandler. Hi, everyone. I just have a question. So funny, I didn't think you would call on me because I was like further on in the queue. So now I'm like nervous. I was like, Shiva, I'll be too back down the line. As I create my, co-create my 2021, one of the things I'm curious about, you, Amber, kind of this beautiful, this group of people, is at what point do so I have enrollment and I have coaching, and then I have kind of the admin part of the business, but then there's the learning piece. And I'm just so curious, one of the things I can hear Steve Chandler in the back of my head, like my ego wants to learn because I'm never good enough. But all these people, they're so much better. There's Carolyn, she's so much, better coach, has so much more expertise. And, everyone out there knows so much more than me. And I'm in a deficit versus the empowered leader, which is hey, learning is just a part of life. And so I'm just curious, how, first of all, how to discern from all this great information out there. There's so much good stuff. I've got shelves of Steve's books and have, read most of them, but at what point, you know, do I just say like, I'm just going to listen to myself for a bit instead of like going out there for information, and like how to create a balance with that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And
Just curious your
I'm gonna,
thoughts.
Steve Chandler, it looks like he eagerly has some thoughts for you. And so we're gonna take the floor.
Yeah. So I had that dilemma too. There's so much. Now there are two ways of learning when you're in coaching or anywhere. If I'm gonna have to perform brain surgery on a loved one in a year, my learning how to do it is important to me. It doesn't feed my ego. I want to know how to do it. So if I'm learning about how to serve people, how to help them have their lives get better, not only in what they're doing, but who they're being and how it feels to be alive. I have a passion in learning how to do that better, not just learning so I know more and I sound like I know more and I have a bigger ego. That kind of learning just, I like it that you're confused by that, because that's not done in service of my client and in service of myself. So if you do take time off to just listen to yourself, learn what changes you. If you've had coaching, if you have a coach, what has changed you from a fearful state to a confident state, from any positive change? How did that work? What happened? How did it occur? Who helped you? How did they help you? That kind of learning is fantastic, because when I'm learning those things, my next enrollment call or coaching session is really exciting, because I'm coming to it with new ways of helping people. But if I'm just learning to be learned or to sound like I know a lot, that's my ego. And you're right, that gets frustrating. There's you can never get enough of what you don't really need. You keep adding more of it and it doesn't help. So if you learn from service, I want to be able to serve my next person better than I've been serving other people. And what can I learn? So I recently took a course in listening. This will surprise you, given how much I'm talking right now. So I'm early in the course, but it did so much for me as far as my coaching conversations and my work with prospects and clients. So I want to learn how to perform this spiritual surgery that opens people up, but I don't want to learn all this other stuff that makes me sound smart. So that's the thing that made it easy for me to get passionate about learning, and not just asking, what should I learn? How much should I learn? Should I replace admin with learning? All that should is, anytime the word should comes in, means I'm wondering what people will think of me. It won't come in otherwise. So what's going to help people? That's what guides my learning.
Thank you, Steve. And I want to share something, Julie, because I remember a few years ago, I was talking to Steve, and there was something I can't remember what it was right now, funnily enough, but I was like, do you think it's okay if I just like focus on, I don't know what it was. It was like something like just pure for fun, like I take singing lessons, but it was something else along the lines of that. And Steve was like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, anything that you would love to learn is going to help your clients. Anything. So I really share that with everyone, because he means that, and I mean that. So whether it's taking singing lessons or learning a new language, or, look at Steve Chandler, finally starting to learn to listen. Like whatever you're drawn to, Julie, not from a place of this would be a good idea. I just find that anytime I'm looking at something like this would be a good idea, this would be good for my business, then I have to really do a gut check, right? Like, is this something I'm excited and like would be fun for me, right? That's the only thing. Is there something you're looking at specifically that you're in this dilemma about, or is this more global?
No, it's more global, and I just appreciate this. And I'm kind of hearing, it's like, if I'm inspired, I don't feel like I'm coming from like what Steve was saying, like, oh, I have to look good, and therefore I must need to know. And all. It's not so much that. It's more like, you know, there's just so much good stuff, and I do get a little analysis paralysis around, like, you know, all of that. But I think it's like, I can trust myself, and if it's really inspiring and it feels good, like that's probably good information, good feedback.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If it's fun, then do it, right? Like if it would be fun for you, that's really, to me, that's my bottom guideline, right? Like, I'm like, and I know it will make me better at serving people. When I do things that bring my life joy, I know that will translate to my clients in all sorts of ways. Steve would say to Michelle and I over and over again, when we were looking at different choices, like, do we not do our group on weekends anymore? I remember that big dilemma. We had an ongoing group that we would do for women, right? And then we sort of were like, oh my gosh, we don't want to do it on a Saturday anymore. Like, we had this huge epiphany. We don't want to do it on a Saturday. Is that okay? And Steve was like, yeah. We're like, really? He's like, yeah, if you don't want to do it on a Saturday, offer the group on a Tuesday. We were like, really? But what about the people who can't come on Tuesday? And he said, there'll be other people who can come on Tuesdays, who will be happy to take a day off work in service to their own personal development. And Julie, there was no, like, other than we just wanted our Saturdays back, there was no quote unquote good reason to move it. We wanted our Saturdays back, and we moved it. And guess what? The group still filled, you know, and it was the right thing to start out offering the group that we met on Saturdays. And it was even more right when we switched it to Tuesdays. And I could say that taking singing lessons is like, well, that's just for me, but that feeds me in a way that nothing else does.
Yes, like here, like the learning is the serving too.
That's right.
That's awesome.
That's right.
Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. All right, Cordelia, how can we help you create your 2021?
Oh my God, I can't believe you called me. You know, it's like every time I come up with a question, somebody asks it or you already answer it in your answer. But what I have been trying to figure out for myself is if I want to shift to serving businesses rather than doing individual or group coaching, because I'm in a really profound period of self-study. So I'm just questioning my ability to show up as powerfully as I could for individuals or, you know, groups. You know, I know, like, I feel like, sure, I can do a group, business training any day of the week, you know, no sweat, you know, but like, these are people's lives, you know, when it's my group coaching or something like that. And I just don't want to screw up anybody else's life. So just being honest.
Yeah. So can I ask you a few questions?
Yes.
So the question you're in is, do I start to do coaching inside of businesses?
Yes.
Versus coaching individuals and doing your own groups?
Yes.
And the concern I hear is like, oh, I don't want to, somehow the stakes are higher inside of a business. Like, if I'm coaching a business owner, I could create more of, I could really mess them up in ways that I can't mess up my individuals or groups.
Other way around. So like if I was working, I'm looking at like nonprofit organizations and corporate.
Yep.
So I feel like I wouldn't screw that up, but I feel like if I worked with like a small business owner, right, just then I would screw them up, you know.
And what evidence do you have of that? I'm just checking. Like, is there something we need to know about you? Like, I'm like, do you have a secret? Oh, is that your superpower? Because like, I have a superpower. My husband and I have a superpower. We attract construction wherever we live. That's our superpower. Wherever we live, all of a sudden a building is going up, a new house, something. That's our superpower. So is your superpower like you can secretly, you have this superpower where you could really mess up a small business owner and you just haven't let it loose yet?
You know what? I don't have any evidence to support that. Pretty much the opposite. Whenever I think I'm going to say something that's going to harm somebody, they're just like, wow, that's so profound. I never thought about it that way. So that's pretty much what I'm working off of.
So I would offer to you, and I want to say to everyone, like anytime a coach wants to enter into a new arena, whether it's like, oh, I want to lean into small businesses, but I've never done it, or I want to lean into groups. And oh my God, to me, what you're working with, Cordelia, is really common called, can I do it? Right? Can I take what I've done over here and do it over here? And what I want to say to that is like, you know, to me, it's a fun experiment to lean into. Number one, it's a really fun experiment because what's required in small businesses is both the same and different in some ways, right? Like I know a lot of coaches who are like, I want to get into corporate, like, oh, corporate's like, that's the dream. And I always say to people, what makes you think that's going to be so amazing? Because there is a lot of like, so you might want to ask yourself, like, what am I thinking is going to be so amazing in working with these businesses? I'm not saying it won't be, but often we have ideas around how it's going to be, and they're not always accurate. I mean, I love doing stuff in corporate, but I don't have rose-colored glasses on. I mean, look, Steve and I talked about it for years. I watched Michelle do stuff. There's limitations that you deal with as a coach in corporate that you never deal with when you have an individual client that you created. It's like, I coach coaches who work in corporate. There are things they have to navigate that if they were doing stuff on their own, they don't have to navigate. I have 2 coaches who I coach who are partners. They have been doing stuff inside of corporate forever. And they have an incredible business serving corporations, doing leadership work. And for the first time, when the pandemic hit, they were like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Everything we do is live. We're doomed. Our business is about to fail. There is no way we are going to survive the pandemic. And I've been coaching them privately. They've also been in my school. And I was like, let's slow down. You're going to serve. All the corporations, by the way, were like, email after email. We will no longer be doing the event on X. The event on Y is canceled. And they just were like, oh no. And I was like, slow down. So you're going to go back to these corporations and you're going to say, hey, it's all fine, but we're not going to let those people go unserved. We're just going to do group calls. And the corporations were like, what do you mean? They're like, no, we're going to serve them. We'll do a group coaching call. We're not paying you. We don't care. We've had the time on our calendar. We're going to serve those people. So they kept serving them. Now over here, Cordelia, they decided when the pandemic hit, they were like, now's the time to launch our advanced group. Now is the time. Now, the advanced group was very different in that rather than a corporation filling the room for them, like here's the 20 people we want you to train, they were handpicking people and enrolling them themselves. They had never done that before. They filled their group with 18 people. Now, I want to let everyone know, because these people track what they do. They had 85 conversations, 85. They filled 18 spots. They said it was one of the most fun, exciting experiences because for the first time, it was them picking who got in their room. So I share that with everyone and with you, Cordelia, to be like, really ask yourself, what about small businesses is so appealing to me? Not that you shouldn't go there, but we all have like these ideas when we have done a certain kind of coaching for a while that this other thing would be way better, way more fun, etc. And I want to say that's not always accurate. And, you know, Devon and Steve can speak to this all day long. It's like Steve did tons of stuff in corporate. And Steve, would you say like, it's not all like, oh my God, it's the most amazing coaching ever. Hey, we have someone in the room who's doing the advanced course with these people. Hello, Claire Marie. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Good.
They're amazing. I know who you're talking about. It's
Awesome.
the best experience of my life.
I'm so glad.
Yes.
So Steve, do you want to talk a little bit before we wrap it up about this thing coaches kind of get into where I want to be doing this? They think it's like better than what they have.
Yeah, I mean, it goes both ways. Sometimes it's more intimidating. They have stories about it, like there's more money there, it'll be easier, or it'll be harder. I admire Cordelia. I've never heard of that viewpoint that it's only corporate, you can't screw them up. I can't harm them with my thoughts and ideas and my service. Now, Cordelia, I think you see the humor in that. Being there in service of another human being will not do any harm. No matter what you say, no matter how offended they are by something, and this will be a shock to everyone listening, but I offend people a lot. So I spend a lot of my time apologizing. I've written beautiful poetic apologies that I use to win people over and bring them closer to me, but I gotta keep them handy. So yeah, there's always this dream something's gonna be better. And it's a distraction. I mean, give it a shot, go there. One thing I found in corporate is there are people in corporate and they have the same fears and the same insecurities that people who we coach outside of corporate do. Exactly the same. There's no difference. And our ability to help is not different inside corporate. Yeah, there's some things to navigate here and there, but it's all the same thing. And you'll be fine in corporate. You'll be fine out of corporate. Just go for it. Just go help people and drop the stories about it'll be better, it'll be worse, it'll be this. Just go see if you can make a difference. See if you love it, and go from there. And the less thinking and the more helping I do throughout my day, the more prosperous the practice gets, and the happier I am.
I love that, Steve. Thank you for saying that. I want to answer Deborah's question about the two coaches. They were enrolling into their advanced group from many people they had served over the course of many, many years, not from the people they were serving complimentary. I mean, these are people they've been working in this world for years. So they were all sorts of people, and it was not from the recent people per se. I want to highlight what Steve just said, because I think it's really important, that the less thinking I do throughout the day and the more helping, the better it is. My business is always growing the more I'm just helping and less thinking I'm doing. And I want to invite all of you. It's like, I saw Asia's question on the chat, like, as a new coach, what do I do? It's like, you can really just take Steve's answer. Start helping, less thinking, start serving, create focus time on your calendar, and then let it just stay in the game. Focus, effort, and attention. And creating our day anew every day is how we create a whole year. That's what we do. So I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank Amber and Devon and Steve Chandler, and of course, Amy Ruby, our fabulous director, for making this happen. Devon, Steve, Amber, and I want to say to everyone, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Go have fun. Remember to create. Remember to have fun. Remember your baby steps. And remember that all we're doing is playing here, building muscles. Yep. Take care, everybody. Happy New Year.
Bye.
Thank you so much for making this possible.